It was interesting. Last week I went to a cash conference, Coalition for Affordable School Housing, and Craig Rush was giving a presentation, so I have to give him credit for this line. But he was asked, what does it take to smooth your project submittal and get your project moving smoothly? And he said, well, quite simple. It's submit perfect plans. So if any of you have ever tried to submit a perfect set of plans, it's going to happen. So anyway, I thought, well, how easy that is, you know, to submit, just to come up with that answer. It's just not that easy. So I've been a supervisor, acting manager, plan checker, field guy for 27 years, and the one conclusion that I've come to is that DSA can help designers create good plans into great plans. DSA can't help poor plans become great plans. We can only help them make them good. So my question to you is are good plans good enough? I'd say no. Great plans are good enough because it cuts down on changes, it speeds up the plan review. You don't have to deal with the change orders nearly as much. Good plans have plenty of change documents and plenty of issues. So what we're really going to talk about today is just some of the ideas from a structural perspective and a fire perspective of how to help bring smooth submittal. And what we did, again, as you've heard, was we asked our staffs to identify what the top 6 items were, top 10 items, top 6 items, and what they came up with really was not necessarily in any order, was to address that all comments prior to back check. That would be number 1. Oversight by responsible design professionals is the second one. Submit correct drawings and specifications. Complete submittal at project intake. Provide a complete submittal at project intake. Coordinate the plans with all of the other non-structural disciplines. And submit complete calculations. So, how many of you think, we're going to rank these, see what you guys come up with. How many of you think addressing all comments prior to back check would be the number 1 thing to smooth out your plan review?
Just one of you?
I got 1,
3,
2, 3, 4.
Schizophrenic.
Very seasoned architects. How many of you think oversight by the responsible design professionals would be the critical item? You voted on the last one, too. That's okay, we'll take one of you.
Remember, if you pick the number 1 answer, it's like a free 2-hour plan check. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, right on. Good one, George. Submit correct drawings and specifications. How many of you think that'd be the most important thing? Okay, we got a bigger handful here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Coordinate a complete submittal at the project intake. How about that one? Another good handful, probably another 10 or 12 of you. Coordinating with the non-structural disciplines. The structural engineers are over here. They're all raising their hand on that one. And submit complete calculations. Structural calculations, that would be. None. Okay, very fascinating. Okay, so get ready for the drum roll, please. Number 1 item from DSA's staff's perspective was a complete submittal of projects at intake. Why? Well, if it's not complete and you miss it by a day, or if it's found out to be just kind of a placeholder set, you've lost 6 weeks right off the bat. And that's a big chunk of money right off the bat. But at project intake, there's a number of things that are kind of specific to that. And Bachelor number 4, Stephen, if you'd like to add some comments to kind of embellish on these points.
Hello? Okay, so yeah, but it's I think from my perspective as doing some of this intake for quite some years is what is a complete submittal, and that really is kind of difficult. It's not a black and white answer. Let's put it that way. We do want, but there are elements of a submittal that will help us in our plan review. So the way I kind of approach it is to make sure that when we say complete submittal, that we have the elements to do an effective structural plan review, an effective access plan review, and an effective fire life safety plan review in the most efficient manner. So we are looking for complete projects, both in content-wise, basic things like the DSA1, the drawings and specs and stuff like that, the big elements, but also some of the content of those elements as well. So for a complete submittal, we have things obviously provide a sheet of all the sheets that you list on your index. When I'm going to intake and your table of drawings list some drawings on the listing, but they're not in your set, it kind of raises a flag, say, well, what's going on here? So, and actually that does happen pretty often. So, it sounds kind of redundant, but if you could just make sure that your sheet index do match your sheets, that's somewhat of a level of confidence in your as far as a complete submittal. Accurate and complete scope definition and application. There's several places where you add your scope definition. Most importantly is the DSA1, but we also ask for a description of the scope on your drawing set. So make sure that's complete. Sometimes a list something's there, and maybe during the course of the design review, the alteration to a classroom building got deleted for whatever reason, but it's listed on your title sheet, and when it comes in for plan review, it's like, if you're going to do an alteration to building A and there's no building A drawings, that's kind of a problem. So make sure your scope is complete, that the definition is there. The geohazards and geotechnical report, if the project does require the geohazards and geotechnical report, we will accept the project for plan review as long as we have some evidence that it has been submitted to CGS for approval. So if it's, a lot of times we will get the geohazards report. It's very helpful. We also have the transmittal to CGS so that we know that it's a work in progress if it hasn't already, maybe, there are cases where it actually has been approved. So if you could provide the transmittal letter to CGS or the actual approval letter from CGS at intake, that's helpful. Provide material data sheets. A lot of times we'll get plumbing catalog sheets, and we will separate that and put that with our access. Other times we'll get fire sprinkler, fire alarm cut sheets. Those will go to our fire life safety plan reviewer. So there are times when those are some product data sheets that are really important to have. Sometimes there might be some unique structural features, and if you could provide those catalog sheets as well, we could include that with our structural plan review set, so that could be passed on to our plan reviewer. And DSA concurrence for exempt work. A lot of times, maybe somewhat related to this, is like we've talked a lot about these preliminary meetings that might happen on a project. If there have been preliminary meetings, and we've talked about the minutes and whatnot, please include that with your project submittal. That way we can roll that up with our plan review sets so that our plan reviewers are aware of maybe some arrangements, maybe some agreements, that have and special considerations that might have been gone into the plan review, which will aid in their understanding of the project as they do their detailed plan review.
Stephen and Sal, are there any particular projects that do or don't require geohazard, geotechnical reports?
The basic for geohazards is any building over 4,000 square feet. I guess I also should preface it here in the like in the valley area where we're not necessarily in a seismic hazard zone. You know, it's going to typically be your new construction, single building over 4,000 square feet.
Unless it's heavy structure like moment frame or CMU, that could be less than 4,000 square foot, still requiring geohazard report.
Yeah. And any building that's in a geological hazard zone would require a geohazard report regardless of size or shape or type. So that's another critical area there. Selden?
Jim, question. Do all of you know what the DSA3 is? Raise your hand if you do. Put them down and raise your hand if you don't. Okay, because you couldn't ask for a better document to tell you what you need. I mean, that should be what you're comparing. Check, got that, check. The low-hanging fruit, like the drawing index, goodness sakes. You know, I can't understand for the life of me why someone would submit a construction document without checking the index against the sheets that we're actually submitting. So there is so much good information available to you. I implore you to please. I'd actually like to make it as part of what you have to stamp and sign when you submit, just to attest that you've actually looked at it, quite frankly, sometimes. Take a look at that Form 3. Don't let those drawings leave your office without looking at that 3, because it will tell you exactly where you've gone off path and help you so that you're not explaining to your client something really ridiculous as to why their drawings are going back one more time. So, you know, just please, I implore you to take a look at that 3.
Great point, Kurt. Thank you. And
don't wait till day before you're going to submit your plans to look at DSA3. Look at a few weeks or month before so you know what's required to submit at intake, so you're prepared with all the docs. Otherwise, you'll be begging for more time.
One more point, and this is me putting on my old AI hat real quick, is that for the architects and engineers that have young staff in your office, you owe it to them to spend the time with them to show them how to put together a complete set of construction documents. We can just talk about drawings, but it includes specs, it includes the contract, but you're raising tomorrow's future about design professionals. And so, again, you know, sit down with them. You're helping yourself, you're helping your client, you're helping the future of your professions by going through that 3. Do we have everything we need? Did you do this? Did you do that? Have you done this? Have you done that? Okay, I take the hat off now. Thanks, Jim.
thank you. So continuing on some of the additional things that are kind of non-structural that tend to bog down plan reviews. We oftentimes don't get complete Title 24 energy reports and calculations, and Stephen will talk a little bit about that. There's also some of the CalGreen requirements that they look for at the time of intake. And Stephen, if you want to add on to these.
Regarding the Title 24 energy reports for most of our regular projects, we do somewhat consider those to be self-certification areas. So at intake, at least, what we look for is the DSA 403A and or 403B, which serves as like the cover sheet to all the applicable Title 24 reports for the project. So we do ask for hard copies of those the applicable energy reports, and like I said, the 403A or 403B serves as that cover sheet. A lot of times we were just making sure that the reports that are submitted do match what's listed on the 403A or B, and that they're signed. Just know that although we do ask for 8.5 by 11 hard copies, there are many of those forms that are required to be put onto the drawings as well. We will kind of do a spot check during intake to make sure those drawings are included in drawings. A lot of times if they're missing signatures, you know, definitely, I've never rejected it for not being signed on the drawings, especially the check set, but we will make a intake comment that they need to be signed prior to plan review for those drawings that are in the
Prior to the back check.
prior to back check, yeah, prior to plan approval, yeah.
Approval. As far as CalGreen code requirements, there are energy efficiency requirements that have to be met. There's outdoor water regulation requirements, and that's what do you look for there?
That's the DSA 1L. again, outside landscape water requirements is again another one of the self-certification programs that we have. We do ask that if the project is required to have irrigation as part of the project, that you include the DSA1L. We have different guidelines on our website which talk about the different requirements that go along with the form and the associated fee.
And I believe that Chet was describing the requirements with the water issues and how you can bank area from one project to another in order to allow you to go forward. So you could, as long as you have banked areas, then you can do additional projects without having to upgrade other water areas.
Okay, maybe can I just add a little bit on that?
Yeah.
So yeah, when the project does come in, the part of the project submittal will include like a site plan of the area that's being rehabilitated, and that gets put into this, we call it a bank, and that's with your DSA1L at time of initial project submittal. As the project goes into construction and the landscaping actually does get put in, there's a follow-up DSA1LC, which is a certification that the landscape that was shown in the drawings has indeed been put in. And until we receive that DSA1LC, the bank isn't deposited, I guess you might say.
Okay.
It's impending until we get that DSA1LC at end of construction. And from my understanding, I don't handle that part too much, but from my understanding, we've been getting a lot of the upfront DSA1L, but the self-certification at the end hasn't quite been as complete as maybe it can be. So until that happens,
as a district, you're not capturing the benefit of having that, that area in the bank.
that's kind of more on the back end of things, but just want to add that.
So the GO4 is a guideline is where you'll find out about where DSA goes with their Cal Green requirements. So do pay some attention to that as well. The second item that our staff identified most, and Kurt just alluded to it just a little bit, was the oversight by the responsible design professional. We find over and over and over that there are repeated errors that firms make, and firms are famous for making that same error over and over and over again. And when our plan checkers identify them, the offices don't update their standards. And so it's really important to do so. If you know that's happening, these things are repeating, then if you want your project to run smoothly, upgrade those. This can be anything from foundation systems and certain types of detailing in the foundations with reinforcing types of ties that are provided, anchors and details for attaching equipment. These things are very, very common, and different firms constantly do the same thing. I'm going to ask Sal to kind of go through the kind of the remaining points on here and just embellish on any of these different issues.
When I do my final reviews from the plan reviewers, and I look for these things, and sometimes they do tell me that, you know, we have told them many times, but there's some, how should I say it? Some design firms have different policy than the others. Some like to put all dimensions on them, some don't. And if your firm keep being notified for the same error, and at the end you've been coming to back check and convincing the plan checker this is not how your firm does it, probably not a bad idea to enclose something in your submittal. Don't put these comments on, because this is how our firm does it. So if plan checker is adamant about having certain information in the plans, he'll discuss with me and saying, well, I need to have this information in the plans, but the firm's saying, nope, we don't do that. And if if you keep getting continuously same comments from plan checker, and you keep coming back and saying, nope, we're not going to do that way. Remember, we're checking for structural safety. If it's structural concern, we want to have it in the plan. If it's how you do your business, we're not going to tell you how to do your business. As long as code compliance, we're going to accept it. But sometime informing the, I don't know how else would you do it. A lot of times when plan check comments come back, I've seen many design professional, I think nowadays everybody have a scanner. They scan all the documents so they can transfer to all their sub-consultants. And some of them put their comments back or send an email back saying, here's a comment, this is how we plan on addressing it. And plan checker is not accepting it, you can always bring it to my attention and I can resolve that before it becomes a problem. So, but responsible design professionals should be overlooking it. If you have the junior engineers or drafting people keep arguing, it's not going to go anywhere, because we have licensed structural engineer reviewing these plans. If they see this is a structural issue, it's going to be a structural issue, unless design professional, whether architect or structural engineer, can inform or discuss this issue directly with the plan checker, saying this is not an issue. And that's all I have to say on that.
Before we leave, just a second, George. So I think it's really important that this right here happens. The senior design professional must transfer knowledge to junior design professionals. We see very often that DSA is the training ground. And so many firms, so many design professionals literally take the approach that you spend X amount of hours, that's all you get. I want you to finish your design within X amount of hours, submit it to DSA, let them do whatever it is they do. They'll be the quality assurance, and therefore we'll save money in our firm. And I know several of you out here I've talked with your leaders of your firms, and I think you know who they are, who take that approach. And it's that right there, and I can tell you right now, several of your firms are notorious for having the most comments than other firms. And it's because of that concept. When the leaders don't train and don't teach, it comes back very obvious to us. And we see it over and over and over again. How many times do we have the young people come down to get schooled by DSA when we're doing a back check? Where's the design professional? Where's the leader to come down and help make the decision so that it can be done right then and there instead of dragging it out? We just had a very large campus that took 3 weeks, every single day, 3 weeks in the back check room. And I mean, that's kind of crazy when you think about how long. It actually wasn't yours, Anthony. It was a different one. It was a much smaller project than yours. So I mean, it's kind of crazy the amount of time that can be spent in the back check room, simply because really, if the senior design professionals had gotten involved, that wouldn't have happened. And that's the school district's dollar.
Hold on, Jim.
So I think that's a very important point to be made.
Hold on. Look, this isn't about a who hit John. This is a problem-solving conversation, okay? And we know that you folks are limited on your resources, that you're getting crushed by workload. We're getting crushed by workload. We need to work together to find solutions to the problems we're all facing, because the rising tide lifts all boats and vice versa. And so as you're working through a problem, if you think we can help you, talk to us and let us help you. If you've got junior staff that you think are going to need some extra attention, we're more than willing to help you. We'll go beyond halfway to help you. We're there anyway. We're getting paid anyway. We'll spend the time with your staff. But, and I know that all the architects in this room know this term, managing client expectations. That's what we do as well. We're trying to manage expectations. We need you to manage expectations. And so if we're all doing that together, a lot of these things will automatically go away. We can take your junior staff and help them and educate them by pointing them in the right direction. What we're doing is a disservice to them, though, when we ask them to come in ill-prepared, and we're not ready for them because we don't know their skill set levels. So, you know, it's really an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. So we're all partners in this process. We're all in it together, and I ask that you think a little bit beyond our normal way of doing business, and as Jim mentioned earlier, it's almost like a pre-meeting. Bring us up to speed on what's going on the project, on your staff, on what is happening here so we can better understand it, so we can resource it appropriately for you. I can't say it any different than that. We're partners in this. We're all partners together, so let's work towards the same goal.
Number 3 was the submittal of the complete and correct drawings and specifications. I'm going to tell you a joke. So the CNN reporter, photographer, I should say, was hopping, was in his Uber heading off to Executive Airport. He needed to take pictures of the Napa fires, and so he told the Uber driver, just when you get to the airport, pull up to the runway. I'm going to hop in the dual prop engine, and that's what I'm looking for. So they did. They pulled right up. The photographer hopped out, grabbed his gear, hopped into the plane, said, "Let's go." The pilot takes off. And as they're flying out over towards Napa, he says, "Okay, take me down real close to the fire down there. I want to get some great pictures." And the pilot turns to him and looks at him and says, "I take it you're not my flight instructor." So I think that's a great point to lead into here. You don't want to assume, and you don't want to assume anything from our perspective that we know what's going on in your minds and what you think as far as what you're providing. Don't assume that we can necessarily really read and understand your calculations and know where it's going to go. Communicate and provide really a complete set of plans. Don't leave details out. If you assume that we're going to know from your typical detail that it's going to work, chances are we probably aren't. And so it has to really be clear from the process and running through that. Specifications are supposed to actually be updated for a project. And so, when you have a steel building, we really don't expect to find wood specs or vice versa. So I think that's kind of an important kind of concept. Don't assume, make sure everything is complete. Sal?
Well, I would say only one thing. Usually 90% of our comments are on the structural drawings. And structural engineer probably gets started when they were handed schematic plans. And when the plans, architectural plans are finalized, they probably had a day or two to look at those before they submit their project. So coordinate your drawings. A lot of times you see what's in the architectural plans, nothing is in the structural drawings. So coordination at the final stage, and that would make our life much easier. So we can see what's covered in the architectural plans are also in the structural plans.
All right. Stephen, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I again, just completeness of the drawings. There's in any set of building drawings, there's a floor plan, followed by like maybe a building section plan, followed by maybe a wall elevation, and then maybe some details. So kind of it does kind of chronologically step through. So sometimes the plans are there, sometimes the sections are kind of lacking, but maybe the details are there. So it is kind of a judgment call, but sometimes when we do see building sections that are kind of straight out of the BIM model, and nice graphics, but no text or anything, it's kind of, it could be more complete, let's put it that way.
I think, there's other things that happen on site plans as well. You might have shade structures. You might have some other relocatable buildings or whatever that might need some earthwork or whatever that reason is. But don't forget when you're finishing these plans that the site details and the site elements and the site structures that are part of that scope really need to be complete also. It's not an assumed thing that we're going to accept it as a deferred approval. So check if you have anything of that nature with our supervisors at the time of submitting your plans or at a pre-construction meeting. George?
I'm not going to stress enough that details are real important, especially for the fire and life safety side. you know, fire and life safety things, your rated walls and ceiling systems and other elements are highly technical now. You know, we're not back in the days of the 85 code that only had 300 and some pages in it and was really simple. You know, we got 12 volumes of code now we gotta worry about. And I can't stress enough the accuracy and the consistency of the details that you use and how you reference them throughout your architectural sets and how you express that to your consultants, that they too follow along with what you're doing. The inaccuracy of the details or the confusion between details is one of the things that the fire and life safety staff deals with all the time, and it just causes delays in your project review. We're really trying to, you know, get you going. You know, I still see how many are still using ball assemblies like UL 147. Great detail, right? Nobody raise your hand. Thank you. It's only been gone for 15 years, but I still see it on drawings. So, you know, updating your layouts and the accuracy of your details is really important. Thank you.
Yeah, and specifications are another one. Trying to keep up with specifications and the years and the appropriate year of the material or what that is. It's amazing how often we're referring to old codes in the current project. We know that they're rolled over from project to project to project, but they do need to be updated as well. Number 4, the fourth item was to coordinate structural design with non-structural disciplines. And okay, structural engineers, you can relax now. This is huge. We spend an enormous amount of time actually looking from the mechanical drawings to the architectural to the structural to do that coordination and verify. And while it would be wonderful to think that BIM and all these other different methodologies are doing that for us, the reality is architects are oftentimes getting the mechanical drawings 2 days before they're submitted to DSA. Structurals never get them. And a lot of this coordination is actually never done, or it isn't done until the plans have already been submitted to us because they're very difficult to see. And our intake folks are not going to necessarily, don't tell them I told you this, but they're not necessarily going to look for this kind of a coordination element during the intake. Technically, we shouldn't be doing it during the plan review. It should be complete, but in order to assure that the structural design is correct, we actually have to do this. And we have to know that the geotechnical design actually meets the system and what was in the report. We oftentimes get reports recommending certain types of foundation systems, and that's not the foundation system that's provided at all. We have site structures that aren't often detailed. Building finished materials. I know the structural engineers have been facing this for a while now, and the architects, especially with insulated wall finishes and wall materials that are coming on board. The code in 2019 is finally going to address how to fasten insulated panels to the structure. So what's been happening up till now? So these kinds of things really need to be addressed and really looked at. Your mechanical, electrical, plumbing layouts, their equipments and their systems, ducts running through walls, fire-rated construction, sprinklers and suppression systems, all really need to be coordinated early on before anything's ever submitted to DSA. Sal, Steve, or George? Watch him.
I would just say from an intake standpoint, yeah, we will, at least I will check for like making sure the bearing pressure that's in the geotechnical report is used in the structural calculations. I will flip through the mechanical drawings, make sure any roof-mounted HVAC units is kind of consistent with the structural drawings. And yeah, sometimes the mechanical drawings might show a 10,000-pound unit in one part of the building, and the structural has a 500-pound unit in a different part of the building. So yeah, we do ask for that coordination because that does mess up our plan of use. So at intake, yeah, we're looking for just that consistency to help our plan review be more efficient.